மாட்டேங்குது. தினேஷ் குமார், ஹரிஷ், எம்எஸ் ஜாயின் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க எல்லாரும். இப்ப எத்தனை பேர் லைனா வருது?
அருண்
சுரேஷ்
அருண்
சொல்லுங்க சார்.
அருண் நீங்க ஹோஸ்டா இருக்கும்போது எல்லாத்தையும் நீங்களே மியூட் பண்ணிடலாம்.
சார் மியூட் பண்ணிடுறேன் சார்.
ஆமா ஆமா, அப்புறம் டிஸ்டர்பன்ஸ் இருக்கும்.
ஓகே ஓகேங்க சார்.
கொஞ்சம் ஜாயின் பண்ணதுக்கு அப்புறம் உங்களுக்கு இன்ஃபார்ம் பண்றேங்க மேம். சரி மேம், எனக்கு என்னன்னா என்னோட போன் கீழே வந்து இன்னைக்கு காலையில ஃபுல்லா டிஸ்பிளே போயிடுச்சு மேம். நான் ஒரு குட்டி போன் அந்த வாட்ஸ்அப் எல்லாம் இருக்காது போன்ல உங்க நம்பரை மட்டும் சேவ் பண்ணிருக்கேன். கீழே போட்டு சுத்தமா டிஸ்பிளே போயிட்டு வெளியே கலையில அதனால அந்த
இசக்கி
ஹலோ ஹலோ
மேம்.
ஹலோ அருண் ராஜா. ஹரிஷ்.
எஸ் மேம்.
ஹரிஷ் மேடம் ஜாயின் பண்ணிருக்காங்க.
ஓகே மேம்.
ஒரு மேம் ஒரு ஹலோ ஹலோ
ஹலோ மேம்.
ஹலோ மேம் ஜாயின் பண்ணிருக்காங்க ஹரிஷ்.
சரிங்க மேம், நான் பேசுறேன்.
பேசிட்டு ஹரிஷ் மேம் ஹலோ சொன்னாங்க கேக்குதா?
ஓகே கேக்குது மேம். சொல்லுங்க மேம்.
Very
சொல்லுங்க
very
மேம்.
happy to have you on the webinar, Harish.
Thank you ma'am. Thanks a lot.
I'm extremely happy to see your profile.
Yes, thank you so much ma'am.
The way you have taken it forward, I'm extremely happy, Harish.
Okay ma'am. Thanks a lot ma'am. Thank you so much. It's my
Harish,
pleasure
France
also.
now.
It's my pleasure also
France.
to come back to my alma mater and to give this talk.
Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah.
Harish. France
Yeah,
எப்படி
thanks.
இருக்கு போ?
நல்லா இருக்கு மேம், ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை மேம். இப்போ எல்லாரும் நார்மல் லைஃப் ஸ்டார்ட் ஆயிடுச்சு மேம். ஸோ எல்லாரும்
Okay.
கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமா எல்லாரும் ஒர்க்கு போக ஆரம்பிச்சிட்டாங்க. எங்களையும் லேபுக்கு வர சொல்லிட்டாங்க. ஸோ நெக்ஸ்ட் ஜூலை ஃபர்ஸ்ட் வீக்ல இருந்து எல்லாரும் அவங்கவுங்க டியூட்டி ஜாயின் பண்ணிடுவாங்க மேம்.
Okay. Okay. Number of
Mm.
cases per day have come down.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
எல்லாம் ஓப்பன் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. லாக்டவுன்ல எதுவும் இல்ல. சோஷியல் டிஸ்டன்ஸ் மட்டும் மெயின்டெயின் பண்ண சொல்லுறாங்க. அவ்வளோதான் மேம்.
Okay.
மத்தபடி ஒண்ணும் பிரச்சனை இல்லைங்க.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
இருந்தாலும் செப்டம்பர்ல மறுபடியும் ரீசர்ச் ஆகலாம். செப்டம்பர், அக்டோபர் எப்படி போகும் அப்படின்னு தெரியல. ஃபார் நவ் எவ்ரிதிங் இஸ் ஓகே.
இல்ல. அது for few more months, I think we will have to meticulously follow certain standard procedures.
ஓகே.
Like
யா எக்ஸாக்ட்லி.
social distancing, washing hands every hour. அது எல்லாமே ஏன்னா அசிம்டமேட்டிக் கேசஸ் நிறைய இருக்கிறதுனால we really do not know.
ஓகே. ஓகே மேம்.
சிம்டம்ஸ் இருந்தா அட்லீஸ்ட் we will be careful.
ஆஹா.
சிம்டம்ஸ் இல்லாத கேசஸ் ரிப்போர்ட் ஆகும் பொழுதுதான் we will
ஓகே
have to
மேம்.
be really very careful.
ஓகே. கண்டிப்பா மேம்.
Native of Coimbatore.
Yeah, ma'am. I born and brought up in Coimbatore, but my native is Madurai. So my
Okay.
father's family are from Madurai and my mother's family are from Coimbatore.
Okay. Okay. Hmm.
Harish.
Hello.
Hi, Stefano. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Mama and Dad are here.
Stefano Chinoti?
Yes, that's
Ah,
it.
okay. That's nice. Grazie. Grazie.
Prego. Listen. Harish?
Yes?
Hello?
Yes.
No, I was saying, I can't see you. Is that normal? I just can't hear you.
Yeah, I haven't put my video. Yeah. Can you see me now?
Okay. I thought it was wrong.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I
Nice
will
to
get
see
you
you,
back
Harish.
later. One
பார்த்துட்டு போச்சா
Hari? Hello, Hari.
Yes, ma'am.
Webinar ada. Hello? Hari? Hello, Hari?
Yes, ma'am.
ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாமா ஹரி? உன்னோட ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் எல்லாம் வந்துட்டாங்களா?
ஆல்மோஸ்ட் வந்துட்டாங்க மேம்.
வந்துட்டாங்களா? அப்ப நம்ம ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாமா?
யா மேம், ஷூர் மேம், ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை, ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாம்.
ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணிக்கலாமா?
ஓகே மேம், ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. யா மேம்.
ஓகே ஓகே ஓகே. I welcome Principal Madam to give a short introduction remarks on this webinar and about health. Principal Madam, please, ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Greetings
evening,
to all
ma'am.
of you. Greetings to all of you from Sri Ramakrishna Engineering College, Coimbatore. I am extremely happy to be part of this webinar jointly organized by Electronics and Communication Engineering Department and the Alumni Association. The topic of the webinar is multimodal and multidisciplinary research, where art, science, and engineering they meet. It's a very, very interesting topic where all of us speak about the multimodal learning and multidisciplinary approach to problem solving in every domain, be it engineering or science. I am very happy to welcome our proud alumnus, Harish Gunashekaran, to deliver this webinar. He is presently doing his PhD in cognitive neuroscience at Paris in the domain of exploring the functional role of neural oscillations in temporal processing. He is the proud recipient of a very competitive fellowship, numeric PhD, which is jointly funded by CEA and the European Union's Horizon 2020 under Marie Curie actions. After his bachelor's in electronics and communication engineering during the year 2012, Harish proceeded to pursue his master's degree from Christian Medical College, Vellore. Harish very strongly believes that with the support of the cognitive neuroscience field, using advanced neuroimaging methods with strong interdisciplinary and integrated approach of philosophy, linguistics, physics, and engineering, up to the very recent artificial general intelligence, it should be possible to decode and unlock mysteries happening in the brain. He holds double postgraduate degrees. His first master's degree, as I mentioned earlier, was from Christian Medical College, Vellore, in bioengineering specialization, and second master's was in bionics engineering with a neural engineering track from the University of Pisa, Italy. He is a very proud alumnus of Ramakrishna Engineering College, a very young alumnus, having achieved so much during the last 8 years after his graduation. I'm very sure that this talk would interest people across all disciplines, since it is basically about multimodal and multidisciplinary research. Now over to Harish.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so I'm just switching on my video. Thanks a lot for inviting me for this a very proud meeting, because I'm very happy. This is my first invited talk, and that too it has come from my own parent institution. And this is usually the first experience is the best experience. So I hope this would be my best experience in my career to present my all the achievements and all to make you all proud. Okay, so I would like to share you my screen. Just hold on a second. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, Harish, we can.
Yes. Okay. So I will try to present this my work. Okay. Can you all see the full screen? One of you, could you answer me? Because I cannot see the chat.
Yes, Harish, very well. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this is my talk that I would like to present with you all. So as Professor already introduced about my topic, which is multimodal and multidisciplinary research, where art, science, and engineering meets. So I would like to thank my organization, CUA, and my funding, research funding, which is coming from European Union and CUA, and my organization, Neurospin, and my affiliated university at Sorbonne, and my doctoral school. So I would like to give you a short resume about me, because
Pardon, I think there is a problem with the audio. I don't like to interrupt you, but many of us are.
Hello, I feel that the presenter has lost his internet connection. Could somebody ping him and tell?
I think he's reconnecting, sir.
Okay.
Harish is rejoining, it seems.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Harish, now we are able to hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think there was problem with my connection. Okay, so where did I stop my talk? Could one of you tell me?
Started to present, it stopped actually.
Okay. So, okay, fine. So, okay. Yeah, someone. Can you all see my slides?
Yes, we see.
Okay. Okay, so I will continue my talk. Yeah, so one of you please give me a feedback whenever I'm talking because I don't know what is happening behind. Okay.
You can take it in the slideshow so that it will be some more flexible. Yeah, that might be useful.
Okay. So this is okay, right?
Still more, you can take it as slideshow.
Okay. Okay, I think this is a problem with every time when we present something. Okay. Okay, I will share you again the screen. Okay, I'm sharing my entire screen. Can you see my slides now?
Yeah, that is, I just wanted to note you that the thing is only slideshow instead of.
It's turned on. Hello.
It is
Can you
inside the
put it in
presentation.
full screen?
Yeah, that is what.
Okay, I have exited the full screen. I think there is nothing.
No. Just press something like F5 or something, so that
Yeah.
the presentation goes to the full screen.
Okay, I think it's F11. Is it okay now?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, so you all with me, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Always.
okay, fine. So I'm restarting my talk. So I worked with different research groups from VLSI till the present group that I'm working with Dr. Sophie and Professor Virginie from Brain Dynamics team. So after that, because of this, I published some 4 papers recently in the last year. And I'm going to talk about the recent paper on IEEE, which is on multimodal and active interface. So before I start, I would like to say my acknowledgements to all the gurus and institutions so far, right, from my family till right now, who's with me in Cognition Brain Dynamics group. Okay, so this is the agenda for my webinar for next 45 plus 10 minutes, maybe if I exceeded. So I would like to answer you what I'm doing, how I'm doing, why is it relevant to you, and when and where it is going to help you. Okay, I would like to say a caution of words. So know your audiences. So we have different people from different countries. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Otherwise, I will answer all your questions after my seminar. Okay, so part 1. So I will be telling you what am I doing and how am I doing. Okay. So you all know that Paris is known for its culture. It is called as cultural capital of Europe, as well as the Gothic architecture is born here. But another aspects of Paris that I recently discovered after coming to Paris is something very interesting, what we call Paris-Saclay, which we call the French Silicon Valley. It's a very intensive area for doing research and business, and what they call RIC, Research Intensive Cluster. So you have different research organizations and different institutions, very prestigious institutions, from École Polytechnique to University Paris-Saclay. Central Supalak is upcoming big university, which they're going to merge everything, and they have an ambitious plan to have like a Harvard or Stanford equivalent of from American universities. So I work here in this area, which is very interesting in CA. And all others are research institutions. Below I put CNRS, INSEM, INDRIA, and all other research organizations. So the first question is, I wanted to know who am I? So that was the question that I'm asking with myself. So what I'm doing is actually I'm asking to me, who am I? So I started this question since 2013 in CMC Vellore. I'm just wondering about how the human brain and human mind works. And then I decided maybe doing and studying research in cognitive neuroscience would get me this answer. And another important talk that was very inspiring for me is from this TED talk, which asked the same questions, but in a very scientific way. So are you a mind with a body or a body with mind? So I will show you this video at the end of this session. I would like to make a full screen. It's risky, but still I would like to go for a full screen. Can I do a full screen?
For the present.
Is it okay now? Can you answer me?
Yes, Harish.
Can you respond? Okay. Yeah. So this is where we wanted to know what is cognitive neuroscience. So first we need to know what is meant by cognition. So if you look into the dictionary, it says mental action, process of acquiring knowledge, understanding through thought, experience, perception, blah, blah, blah. But if you go to the origin of this word, what is cognition, which means in Latin, conoscere, also similar in Italian, we call conoscere. So which means to know. So to get to know. So which means it's to mean get to know. Means what? Get to know about what? About some information. So now if you see in the picture on the right side, you can imagine as if like a brain is a computer. Once you know brain is an information machine, you can think, okay, brain is something like a computer. We can think about and imagine like which receives inputs from the different sensory information from the external world, and it processes some information and gives you the output. The output here is the behavior. So whatever the input coming from the external world, it could be from sensory information or any other, it goes to our brain and we process that and will express that as a form of output in terms of our behavior. So you can say, okay, so brain science is converted into computer science. So it's very easy. But the reality is not. So the brain is not so easy. It is not such a simple computer as we think, everybody. That's why from all the famous scientists, from Watson till Nikola Tesla, they've been asking these questions. So I would like to read one person's thing from Michio Kaku. The most complex object in the known universe, the brain, only uses 20 watts of power. It would require a nuclear power plant to energize a computer the size of a city block to mimic your brain. So if someone calls you a dim bulb, that's a compliment. Okay. So you all there with me?
Yes, Harish.
Okay. Yes, so that is the reason why in 2013 it was a very big, risky step made by two big European Union and American government. So they invested like a 1 billion European fund, 1 billion euros, as well as like $100 million dollars in US to understand about the brain. So they wanted to try to understand this big problem. So they have invested a huge money. At the beginning, they were quite suspicious, where there were controversies. Is it really worth to invest such a big billion amount of money in this kind of simulation? For example, the difference between Human Brain Project and the Brain Initiative is that in terms Human Brain Project, they wanted to simulate the brain. So they wanted to make a whole brain simulation using high powerful computers, which you could see on the right side. It is there also in our institute. There is very high supercomputers are there. So they wanted to simulate all the entire brain using a supercomputer. While the Brain Initiative, they wanted to make technologies. So the Brain Initiative, the brain is an acronym for brain research through advancing innovative neurotechnologies. So US wanted to put more money in terms of technologies, especially neurotechnologies. So Human Brain Project has given a lot of very good outputs, especially in terms of technology. So it has given a new platforms. Like for here, I've shown you different platforms, right from neuroinformatics platform, neuromorphic platform, or neurorobotics platform. So Human Brain Project has given very interesting and promising results in scaling up the technology from a silicon-based to a neuromorphic approach. For instance, I would like to show you one picture that I've downloaded from Human Brain Project. So here they will show here on the blue color is a conventional hardware, electronics hardware, while on the red is neuromorphic hardware. So the primary objective is to make a computer with less power at the same time, like functions like a high speed, like a computer or a high speed brain. For example, brain in the middle, which says that it takes only 20 watts of power, while the supercomputer using a conventional hardware, it takes up to very high, like megawatts. So they are saying it's beyond the wind turbine power. The supercomputer takes so much of power, which is huge and bulky, but at the same time, it is not equivalent to brain, which is even more complex and even more sophisticated. So the neuromorphic hardware, neuromorphic approach was developed during this period. They wanted to emulate all the processing happening in the brain using a soft neuromorphic approach, while simply using the equations and just in terms of functional simulations, or hard neuromorphic approach, which means at the structural level. So they use all the silicons. They wanted to design all the transistors in terms of like using memristors. using something like similar to the neurons. So the emulation could be either simply in the functional aspects, which we call soft neuromorphic approach, or it could be at the level of hardware, which we call hard neuromorphic approach. After the BRAINS initiative, IEEE, which is known for its engineering fields, they've started to invest their time in BRAIN. And they've started communities all over the place, especially to promote this neuromorphic or brain-related technologies using all the neuromorphic computing, or right from the software as well as from the hardware. So this is quite interesting for me, that I discovered that IEEE has a separate division and recently started promoting only the neurotechs and the neuro approaches. And they're also promoting the youngsters to start up, to make a company based on neurotechnologies. Okay, so this is where I work at Neurospin, CA, Paris-Saclay. So here you see a very nice infrastructure. You see something like a sine wave, no? I will tell you what is the reason behind this sine wave. So this is my team. They are from big team. They are very, very well-known and world-renowned scientists. All are working in the same team, as a big team. They wanted to try to understand the brain. So this is our team. So Professor Stanislas Dehaene is one of the notable pioneer in cognitive neuroscience as well as consciousness theory. And under him, we have got different groups, 5 different groups. One, people understanding the language, people are understanding the development from the babies, using the monkeys. And I am from the cognition and brain dynamics team under Professor Virginie Van Maschenhoe. And we are understanding about different aspects of the brain cognition in terms of dynamics. And there is also a computational group, which they wanted to use all this modeling aspects to understand the brain. So what do we study about? So this is the first question that I would like to answer you all. So what do I study? So I study, or we study, cognition and brain dynamics using monkeys, non-human primates, using infants and babies, and also using the adults, humans. The reason why we need to go to all these aspects is to first, we want to understand from the monkey brain at the single cellular level using invasive techniques, using multiphoton imaging, multi-unit arrays. We also wanted to understand how the brain is developing. So if you want to understand the developing brain, you need to do some experiments with the kids and the children, newborns and the neonates, using non-invasive techniques, using MRI, EEG or MEG, as well as also with the adult human brain to understand how the brain functions, what is the cognition behind the brain. Are you all with me?
Yes, Harish. Yes.
Okay, fine. Of course, all the experiments are made after a proper legal and ethics committee approval. So we have got all the local institutional review board as well as the national committees, and all the experiments are done after the approval from these legal bodies. So how do we study? So the first question I was like, what I'm doing right now, I would like to answer how do we study the cognitive and brain functions? So there are different levels of representations, right from localized thing. So we use invasive measures. 2, we use non-invasive, like a global measures using MRI, PET scan, and as well as we also have invasive global measures. So something called electrocorticography or intracranial EEG, which they use this for mainly for clinical purposes, but they also use this opportunity to study what is happening. So just to give an overview, just to give a basic, so what is the brain and how do we measure and everything, I would like to give you just one simple picture here to demonstrate. So basically it's a brain functioning because of bioelectricity. So there is some ions that's flowing around in and out of cells, single cells, and because of which when we try to measure it, behaves something like a measuring your from transistors or any other electronics or electrical instrument. You have something signals which is like changes over time. So signals of voltage in millivolts, microvolts, that varies over time. So you could do at a single cellular level, you could see a nice like a spiking thing, or you could do at the population level, which we call LFPs, or local field potentials, or at the EEG level, which is at the top of the scalp, which is something even more generic or global field potentials. Of course, we also use MEG right now to pick up the magnetic fields that is coming from the brain. So one example I would like to quote you, how are we really we can able to measure using all these things invasively in human studies? Yes, of course. So people, they have studied like everywhere, especially the neuroscientists, and at the clinical level, they put something like a needle, like you could see here, they try to put something, this is an electrodes, and which goes inside like a tiny small micro electrodes, and once you connect it to the amplifier, you could see the fluctuations. You could see the fluctuations of the signal of the voltage at the single cellular level, or we call, so at different, during different conditions, during sleep as well as during wakefulness, you see there are like 6 different layers across the cortex, from layer 1 to layer 6, which we call laminar recordings, and you could see very nicely the oscillations, the slow oscillations during sleep as well as wakefulness. Usually such oscillations, when you try to do the signal processing methods, they have found all these oscillations found in the low frequency band. So when you plot the power spectral density, you could see over frequency and amplitude, you could see some significant findings they have made in the low frequencies. So how do we study the cognition in brain? So I've shown you some brain, and you could see like you could read a single cellular level or at the global level, which means there is a problem. So there is a existence of scaling problem, we call. So it is there, you could measure anything, you can measure at the single cellular level or at the localized like group level, or we call micro scale or meso scale, or you could also measure at the whole brain scale. How do we ask a question? It depends upon your interest and your choice or your facilities available to probe into investigation. You can use different levels of representations, which means there is a wide range of spatial scales, which varies from centimeters to nanometers. At the ionic level or atomic level, we could go, or you could see a different temporal scale, from the years, over how much time or years we do, like for example behavioral measures doing observations, or in days or in minutes or in seconds or milliseconds, even microseconds. And on top of that, we have something called fractal patterns. So you could see like a self-similar pattern. If you go into zoom, like you could see this in nature. For example, leaves which has got a self-similar pattern, a pattern which repeat itself. So also in human brain and in our lungs or in our arteries, we have this structure. This is quite interesting, and I will tell you how do we approach from an engineering point of view to tackle this problem. So this is one thing that I wanted to mention. There is a scaling problem. There exists a scaling across spatial, temporal, and across topological, which means you could see topological means something connections, some networks, some group of networks. You could see a small network or at the group global network. So there exists a scaling problem. So how do we tackle the scaling problem? Now we can use something called engineering systems approximation. So you can assume there is no such scaling. What I say, I investigate there is only one scale, and I can define all the dynamics which that scale, which we call defined structural scale, defined functional scale, and this comes under linear dynamics. So you use the stable system and LTI system approximation and all the linear signal processing methods, so all the Fourier based, and linear algebra works perfectly to understand this mechanism, meaning that you have approximated The reality is different. Reality is you have brain in a different scales, but for an approximation, for an understanding purpose, we assume there is only one scale, both in structural as well as in function. But nowadays, we understood that this is not sufficient. So there is something called scale-free dynamics, which means we are going towards a reality, which means we assume there is no structural scale, no defined functional scale, which means it goes into the realm of nonlinear dynamics, what we call fractal dynamics. And we use model a system, something called chaotic system or the chaos theory, which comes under a critical state assumption. Like they say, there is always a brain that operates at a maximum efficiency at one critical state, which we call critical state assumption. And the system always wanted to stay in that kind of equilibrium state. If a system is an equilibrium, then you can use something called long range spatio-temporal correlation. Because if it is the same state, you have it expressed over long space and time, is the same phenomena. So which means there is a correlation across space and time. Of course, this is a non-linear method you have to use, and linear algebra may not work well to capture this non-linear dynamics. So you can go for information theory metric, some entropy measures. So how do we approach the cognitive neuroscience problem? As I said, it depends upon our expertise. So it could be a hypothesis-driven method using the observations and the measurements, what we call wet lab. So we can do spiking activities, local field potentials, global field potentials. Or you can use a computational approach, where here you don't need to measure all the phenomena, but if you understand what is happening, I try to put in the equation, in a differential equation, and I try to simulate on the computer. So which means I can emulate the brain's behavior in the computer. The European Human Brain Projects comes under this approach, which is computational models using mathematical equations, which we call dry lab. So there is no liquid involved to go and measure everything. It is purely a computational model. Recently, because of artificial intelligence and AI or machine learnings, because of lot of data is there. So from hypothesis, the first two approaches, we have gained lot of knowledge in the data as well as the mechanisms. Now I combine the first two methods, hypothesis driven and computational method, what we call data driven approach, which is very interesting. And this is what very relevant for this talk, data driven world. And I use artificial networks, reservoir computing, or reinforcement learning, or the deep learning, which is famous nowadays, deep learning, or you can also use something called Bayesian statistics, which we say the present knowledge is based on the evidence as well as our a priori knowledge. So something called Bayesian inference. And I do a hypothesis driven method. So I measure everything. I measure and observe the brain action potentials at the MEG level, like globally. So I do this method. It is also depends upon your interest or your personality. Some people, they wanted to start from a big picture. Like me, for instance, I want to have a theory, and then I need to make a hypothesis and then come down logically using what we call a top-down model. So you have a theory, you have a hypothesis, and then you have observation, and then you confirm your theory or your hypothesis. While on the other hand, what we call data-driven method is something backwards, something like a Sherlock Holmes. So I have the evidence first. The event has already happened. The crime scene has been already happened, but I have only the evidence. So I go back, I will trace back my what has happened. So what we call this is induction method, or this is what happening right now. So data-driven approach is something like this. You have a data and you wanted to understand how this data came. So you go back using data-driven approach. Whatever you do, whether it's top-down or bottom-up, make sure you don't lose your intuition. Always have an intuition. Whatever you're doing, have that logical intuition with you always. And all other methods are just to support your intuition. Okay, so is everything is clear right now? You all there with me?
Yes, Harish. Going very interesting. Please go.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how do I approach as an electronics and communication engineer? this cognitive neuroscience problem. So as I said, I go with the traditional scientific way or the hypothesis driven method. So I decide the scale. In my case, I decided I can use MEG, and I study the literature and identify what is missing in my literature, and I frame the research question and hypothesis, and I choose which I want. So if I want high temporal resolution, I go for MEG or EG. While if I want high spatial resolution, I go for imaging, MRI, or we call functional magnetic resonance imaging, which we call fMRI. I conduct the experiment, collect the data, do some analysis, and publish my findings. Okay, so how do I use this signal processing methods? So I have my data. I've done the experiment. So I have to go through certain signal processing methods, because usually the data that I collect from the subjects, from the human subject, quite noisy. So I need to do some pre-processing and post-processing. So for example, low pass and high pass filtering. I do some Maxwell filtering, baseline correction. I need to remove some artifacts using independent component analysis or signal source space projection. And I do, if I want to understand what is the oscillations or frequency in that data, I use some Welch power spectral density, or I go for time frequency representation using Morlet waveform transformation. And I finally do source reconstruction. I talk about more about the source reconstruction in following slides. Of course, once you have done all this, you need to publish, right? So you need to take to the public and you need to show to your funding agency, look, I've found something interesting and I've discovered something. So for this, you need to have some soft skills. So this is like a typical like a flow of any scientific process. So you need to have some soft skills like execution functions. You need to plan, you need to read your literature, you have to do some programming also, you need to do some measurement, you need to have some data analysis skills and presentation skills and public speaking. So this is not my approach, this is not of my thing, this is a approach of any cognitive neuroscientist. So this is a typical approach of any cognitive neuroscientist. They have to follow these methods. They have to start with a question, they have to use the signal processing methods, and they have to present their results to the public. Coming to the practical aspects. So I use for my work what is called MNE Python. So I would like to acknowledge my team and for sending me to a practical workshop that happened in Paris in December, organized by Cutting Edge Association. So because of this, I learned a lot of practical skills, how to handle this huge data coming from MEG. So this is first step. So this is just for a visualization. What is Maxwell filtering? Maxwell filtering, something specifically used for MEG, because of magnetic fields. When you record it, it is usually like have a lot of noise, environmental noise coming from because the magnetic field which I'm measuring is very, very low in the range of femtotesla, which is in the order of 10 to the power minus 15. So definitely there will be noises picking up the magnetic field from the environment. So I need to use something called Maxwell filtering. So you see the raw data, it's quite noisy, but once you use Maxwell filter from MNE, it becomes very clean data. And here you see some artifacts on the left. You see some heart artifacts, which is like very peaking. So I use the artifact rejection using independent component analysis. So on the right, the artifacts has been corrected. Also the ECG artifacts, you could see on the left, there are some regular peaks on like 4 peaks. You have 4 vertical peaks. On the right side, you don't find that kind of peaks. And you can use some methods to see where your sources is coming from. If I project all the data on the head by finding this kind of independent component analysis, you could see clearly where the noise or the location of the noise. If you want to locate the ECG noise, it is usually the lateralized on the sides. While if you see the blink artifact or the eye blinks, you could get it from the EOG, and you could see clearly there is some artifacts on top of the eyes. So these are all unwanted information for me because I am interested only in the brain signals. I'm not interested in ECG and I'm not interested in EOG, what we call electrooculography, which means for this moment, it is considered to be as a noise. So I have to remove this noise. So in MEG, you have two kinds of sensors, what we call gradiometers. You could see from the unit femtotesla per centimeter, which means it takes a differential recording between two sensors. Or we also have a magnetometers, which is so gradiometers are relative measurement, while the magnetometers is absolute measurement. You could see very nice, like what we call evoked response. So I tried to do some experiment and I tried to average across the trials, and I get a very nice plot across all the sensors. You could see different colors refers to different sensors, and you could see the how nicely once you give some stimuli, you get some response, some peaking response for few milliseconds, and then it settles down. And I could see also spatially how the distribution is across the head. So MNE is very nice and very cool to do this MEG processing or EEG processing. Okay, I would like to show you one example right now. What right now I'm working on. So I'm trying to do some oscillations. I need to find out for my research question. I'm trying to find out what is the oscillations happening in the brain. So I tried to record the signals and I tried to remove the artifacts and I cleaned everything and I tried to take the power spectral density, which is PST we call, and I could see what is the frequency my brain is giving or happening for the different conditions. So there are three conditions: some what is called resting state, tapping conditions, counting. So you see a nice peak below 10 hertz. What we call this is an alpha oscillations. So in the brain, there are different oscillations which operates at a specific frequencies. Here you see something called alpha oscillations, and I need to find out other kind of oscillations also apart from alpha, something called beta or theta or delta oscillations. So in order to find that, I have to remove. You could see some kind of like a slope, no, which means at the low frequency there is a high power, at the high frequency there is a low power, which means there is a trend, what we call 1 over f phenomena, and this phenomena comes from that scaling phenomena. So previously I mentioned about because of the fractal nature, because of the intrinsic anatomy, because of the nature, you have a self-similar pattern, because of which you see this kind of 1 over f phenomena. And because of this, I cannot measure what is the true oscillations happening, because by default you see there is always a high oscillations at the low power and there's a low power in the high frequency range. So I'm not really sure if there are any oscillations at the low frequency band. So I need to remove this. So for this I use something called irregular resampling method, which is IRASA. So it gives you an approximation of this 1 over f component. So on the figure on the left you see the dotted lines, that is a 1 over f component, and the bold line is the true spectrum that I got from my power spectral density. If I subtract that from the dotted lines, what you see on the right side is that subtracted. So now on the right side, this is the true spectrum. This is a true oscillatory spectrum where you really conformly say, okay, there is an oscillations at 10 hertz. There is some peaks. So normally, if you want to find an oscillation, you are depending upon the presence of peak in the power spectral density. So at the 10 hertz, there's a strong peak. But on the low end also, there are some peaks. We are not sure whether this is a noise or this is really an oscillation. Anyways, so what I did, I tried to plot. So I computed for this was for one channel or one average of one hospital channel on the behind the back end of your head. If I compute for all the sensors, so I have around uh, 102 magnetometers and 204 gradiometers. So here I'm plotting only for the magnetometers. So if I compute power spectral density for all the channels and I try to put it on the topo, you could see very nicely which activity is present where. For example, in the delta band activity, which is around 0.5 to 4 hertz or 3 hertz, it is there in the first. And then theta oscillations, which is between 4 to 7 hertz, and alpha oscillations between 8 and 13, and beta oscillations between 15 to 30 hertz. So, so if you see, there are different oscillations. I would like to acknowledge my guide. This work was supervised by Dr. Sophie and Dr. Leila, and they helped me to do this kind of analysis. Okay. You are all there with me?
Yes, Harish, yes.
Okay, fine. So the next problem is what is called an inverse problem. So one problem was a scaling problem and the other problem is inverse problem. So this is another problem that is very difficult for us to find out what is happening in the brain. What is called as cocktail party problem. So cocktail party means like there are a lot of people here, and if you want to register the voice of the single person, how many microphones you need? If I just place one microphone, the microphone records the voice from all the persons. But if I want to find out the voice of the individual, so I'm getting a mixed response. I need to separate all the responses, but it is not so easy. It is not so easy. And what we are doing right now on the brain is the same thing. So on the head there are a lot of neurons. They are talking with each other, and I'm just instead of placing the microphones, I'm just placing some electrodes using EG or MEG sensors. I'm placing on the scalp, so I'm not able to specifically find out which I'm getting the activation from which neurons. So I'm getting a combined activity, which is something called mixed sources. I need to separate this, and this is what we call source reconstruction. And this is purely an engineering problem. And how do we solve this inverse problem? So it's a two-step problem. The first step we call forward modeling. In engineering we call it's a well posed problem, or we can use using finite solutions. There is a finite, so mathematically if I want to solve this problem, you will get a finite number of solutions, and for this you need electromagnetic fields. So you need to understand, you have to use Maxwell's equations, quasi-static approximations. So I know if I place the dipole in the one part of the head, and I can record where is my fields coming from that dipole. So it is very straightforward. So you have to solve this Biot-Savart's law, or so in the case of MEG, I will solve magnetic field equation. So I have to solve Biot-Savart law. In the case of EG, you need to solve Poisson equation or something else. So this is it's a very good example to highlight. Look, this is an engineering problem that is happening. So any ECE student can able to solve this problem. And this is not our goal. Our goal is, this is just a forward problem. And if we want, this is not our goal. Our main goal is to find from where, so the dipole is already placed in the head and we are receiving, but we don't know where exactly the dipole is coming from, where exactly the location of the dipole. So for that, first you have to do this forward modeling. It's a simulation. So this is a typical boundary element problem or finite element method problem. So use all the boundary conditions and everything, and you need to solve this problem. The second step is what we call inverse modeling, and this is an ill-posed problem. And this is where the problem comes, because if you solve the equations, because you have a infinite number of sources, but you have a finite number of recordings, which means there are 100 people, and you are just using one microphone to record the voice of the 100 people. How do I separate? It's like a ill-posed problem. I cannot use one microphone for all the 100 people. Maybe I can use 100 microphones for the 100 people. In this way, at least I can solve. So what we call like a full rank matrix or something in linear algebra terms. So this is a ill-posed problem, and you have infinite solutions. And how do we solve? We solve using regularizations. This is called Tikhonov regularizations, or this is something called optimization. So we use ordinary least squares or ridge regression. For example, in M&E, they're using ridge regression. So this is a typical machine learning problem or optimization problem. Again, here, this is a very interesting place where you can see the big picture, because you think the machine learning and optimization is not there in neuroscience. That is different. This is different, but it's not. Fundamentally, they're all the same. Depending upon the application, they call machine learning or different kinds of name. So here, this again, we use the same machine learning approach or optimization problem to find out my source. So this is the overview. So I am record only at the scalp, and this is not enough for me. This is not enough for a cognitive neuroscientist, because they want to have a specific answer. So they have to go back to the cortical surface. So for this, I can't measure directly to the cortical surface non-invasively. I can measure only using estimation method. I can use only the signal processing method, mathematical methods, optimization methods to go back to the brain area. So you have to do this forward mapping first, and then you have to go back to inverse mapping. So this is another picture to show. So what is boundary element methods? It's something that I'm showing here. So FEM. So this, you are all aware of this boundary element problem, or you are fixing the meshes and you try to go the forward model, and you use the inverse problem using optimization to go back and to find out where exactly is. So in summary, you have two steps. You have a functional data, which is the EEG data, and you have an anatomical data or the structural data. So I have to combine this, right? So I have to combine this physiological information with the anatomical information using the engineering models, and I can go back to see what is happening at the brain level. So this is what we call source reconstruction. Are you all here with me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a big picture. So this is given in the MNE Python website. So they are very nicely shown. So the blue data, the blue color flow charts are coming from the physiology. They are the MEG signals or electrophysiological signals. While on the red side, they are coming from anatomy. So they are coming from the MRI. So they are giving only the anatomical information. So you have to combine both. Only then we know where exactly in the brain what is happening using forward modeling and inverse modeling. So use this to go back to find out where is the real sources are. Okay, so this is some results just to show you some results from my team. This is quite exciting results. So the question I asked, so what is self, who am I? So cognitive neuroscientists, especially in my team, Professor Virginie, she investigates what is happening at the brain level to understand the self, the role of self. So they try to conduct some experiment, and they try to find out what is the role of brain in self, to find out myself. So there is something called egocentric and allocentric representations in cognitive neuroscience. Egocentric means something, it is depends upon you, it is reference with your body and your mind, that is we call egocentric. And allocentric means something with reference to world, to the outside world, allocentric. So my team, they are asking what is the representation of the time with reference to egocentric representations. So they were conducted different experiments, cognitive psychological experiments, and they found what is the mental representation of the time and the space on our body. How do we perceive time? How do you perceive space with respect to my own self and with respect to the external world? So you see they found this source reconstruction techniques. They clearly spotted out which area in the brain they are activating for the self projection or for the egocentric representations. Okay. This is another recent work. This was done with the collaboration of one Indian student, Miss Pooja Prabhu. She's doing her PhD at Manipal Institute of Technology. She was a visiting student last year. They all investigated some problem, and they found out there are some contribution from the hippocampus, which is something we call deep sources. Normally, it is not so easy to find this deep sources. But using MEG, and they have achieved some very nice, interesting results and exciting results. And they try to capture the deep sources. So they trying to find out the brain waves that comes from the hippocampus. Hippocampus is the place where which is we call memory. So this is our memory. All our memory, long-term memory, is being stored in this area in the brain, which is very small. We call this a hippocampus. Okay. Now I would like to show you, before going to the next part, I would like to show you one video about the TED video that I quite So I will share you the different screen now. So I'm sharing you my video now. Let me know you can see it. Just a moment. Let me know also whether you can hear the audio. Can you hear?
Yes, Harish.
Yes.
We can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Harish. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Look at your hand. How do you know it's really yours? It seems obvious, unless you've experienced the rubber hand illusion. In this experiment, a dummy hand is placed in front of you, and your real hand is hidden behind a screen. Both are simultaneously stroked with a paintbrush. No matter how much you remind yourself the dummy hand isn't yours, you eventually start to feel like it is, and inevitably flinch when it's threatened with a knife. That may just be a temporary trick, but it speaks to a larger truth. Our bodies, the physical, biological parts of us, and our minds, the thinking, conscious aspects, have a complicated, tangled relationship. Which one primarily defines you, or yourself? Are you a physical body that only experiences thoughts and emotions as a result of biochemical interactions in the brain? That would be a body with a mind. Or is there some non-physical part of you that's pulling the strings but could live outside of your biological body? That would be a mind with a body. That takes us to an old question of whether the body and mind are two separate things. In a famous thought experiment, 16th century philosopher René Descartes pointed out that even if all our physical sensations were just a hallucinatory dream, our mind and thoughts would still be there. That, for him, was the ultimate proof of our existence. And it led him to conclude that the conscious mind is something separate from the material body that forms the core of our identity. The notion of a non-consciousness echoes the belief of many religions in an immaterial soul for which the body is only a temporary shell. If we accept this, another problem arises. How can a non-physical mind have any interaction with a physical body? If the mind has no shape, weight, or motion, how can it move your muscles? Or if we assume it can, why can your mind only move your body and not others? Some thinkers have found creative ways to get around this dilemma. For example, the French priest and philosopher Nicolas Maubranich claimed that when we think about reaching for a fork, it's actually God who moves our hand. Another priest-philosopher named George Berkeley concluded that the material world is an illusion, existing only as mental perceptions. This question of mind versus body isn't just the domain of philosophers. With the development of psychology and neuroscience, scientists have weighed in as well. Many modern scientists reject the idea that there's any distinction between the mind and body. Neuroscience suggests that our bodies, along with their physical senses, are deeply integrated with the activity in our brains to form what we call consciousness. From the day we're born, our mental development is formed through our body's interaction with the external world. Every sight, sound, and touch create new maps and representations in the brain that eventually become responsible for regulating our experience of self. And we have other senses besides the typical 5, such as the sense of balance and a sense of the relative location of our body parts. The rubber hand illusion and similar virtual reality experiments show that our senses can easily mislead us in our judgment of self. They also suggest that our bodies and external sensations are inseparable from our subjective consciousness. If this is true, then perhaps Descartes' experiment was mistaken from the start. After all, if we close our eyes in a silent room, the feeling of having a body isn't something we can just imagine away. This question of mind and body becomes particularly interesting at a time when we're considering future technologies such as neural prosthetics and wearable robots that could become extended parts of our bodies. Or the slightly more radical idea of mind uploading, which dangles the possibility of immortal life without a body by transferring a human consciousness into a computer. If the body is deeply mapped in the brain, then by extending our sense of self to new wearable devices, our brains may eventually adapt to a restructured version with new sensory representations. Or perhaps uploading our consciousness into a computer might not even be possible unless we can also simulate a body capable of delivering physical sensations. The idea that our bodies are part of our consciousness and vice versa also isn't new. It's found extensively in Buddhist thought, as well as the writings of philosophers from Heidegger to Aristotle. But for now, we're still left with the open question of what exactly our self is. Are we a mind equipped with a physical body, as Descartes suggested? Or a complex organism that's gained consciousness over millions of years of evolution thanks to a bigger brain and more neurons than our distant ancestors? Or something else entirely that no one's yet dreamt up? If you'd like to dig deeper into the mind-body problem, we highly recommend you read or listen to I, Robot by renowned science fiction author Isaac Asimov. You can download a beautifully performed audio version of this book for free by visiting
Okay. You are here?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we are here.
Okay, fine. So now I will go back to my slides. So I'll be starting my second part of the talk. So first part has completed. So the first part answered who am I, or what am I, what I'm doing, and how I'm doing. The second part is for you. So I will share you that now.
Sorry to interrupt. You seem to be on mute.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, very
good. Okay, perfect. So whenever I try to share my screen, it goes to some problem. It disconnects. So that's the reason why I have to go back and come in again. Okay, so I'm sharing you again my screen, my PowerPoint. I hope it doesn't interrupt. Can you all see my slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to the full screen mode now. Is the full screen is okay?
Yes, sir, it is okay.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is my second part. So I hope I don't take you more than 20 minutes. So I've introduced to you my topic and how do we approach. Now, why this is relevant to you? Somebody's mic is turned on. Could you please turn it off? Okay, fine. So why this is relevant to you? Okay, somebody's mic is turned on. Could you please turn off? Somebody's mobile phone is ringing. Okay. So why it is relevant to you? I'm repeatedly getting some noise from the audience. So could you all please put your mic off? Somebody has turned on the mic. I think Viveka. Viveka has turned on. Viveka has turned on his mic. Her mic. Who's Viveka? I think someone has put the mic on. Viveka, I try to text her.
Arun, host can mute all. Arun, mute all.
Sir, we did, sir, but he.
Arun, you can mute the, as a host, you can mute them.
Yeah, I think now it's okay. Yeah, I think it's okay. Perfect.
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So why this is useful or relevant to you, and when and where it is going to help you. So my target audience are the young graduates who are about to leave their academia, as well as the researchers who want to get into some industries, something they want to do what related to cognitive neuroscience. Okay. So 2013 was the year of brain. You've seen previously, I've shown you big funding was given for the brain research. But even just was 1 billion, and it was quite controversial. But 2018-19, a lot of institutions, bigger institutions, they've given bigger amount for AI, what we call artificial intelligence. So you could see from MIT, Stanford, the UK universities, all, even the French universities, all the universities, big giants, they started to give large money and investing for the artificial intelligence. Also the companies, they have started to invest a lot of money in AI, starting from Google, Amazon, Apple, Intel, Microsoft. They're spending a lot of billions of money in AI. Of course, data science is also developing in sideways, because nowadays, I said data driven world, you have a lot of data, enormous amount of data, but the problem is we don't know how to handle such huge data. So that is why there is a new discipline that have created, what we call data science and data scientist or data engineer. And this data is it's common problem with all the sectors. So there are abundant amount of data, some trillions TB of data. They don't know how to handle this. So with the help of AI and the data science, now they're trying to handle all this data related stuff, both in government and the private sector, and educational institutions, also in the research, also for the business. Okay, so this is something interesting that I discovered yesterday when I was trying to prepare. So I thought for the brain research, the funding was given to the institutions. So the funding was made by some government, but the research happened within an institution, within an academic institution, not outside institution. While the AI is something interesting, because not just the institutions, even the government is interested in investing. So now from 2018 onwards, all the big countries, officially in their government, they're more interested in investing, and they have a strategic plans. So they have a real strategic plans for fostering this artificial intelligence for the next 10 years. So everybody has got their own name. So for example, AI initiative, the American AI initiative, and the AI for humanity for France, in France, and the China is investing, and UK is investing. The UK is investing something called industrial strategy. So all over the world, the government has started interest in the AI, and all they have their own strategy. So they have in their agenda, in their government agenda, they have invested a lot of money. They have strategy to foster and develop. Suddenly the neural networks and artificial intelligence, which was interest of computer scientists, now it has become like a political interest. So it has moved from the lab, from the academic institutions to the political level. So every government have started this strategy on AI. Also in India, all the big all the nations, almost all the nations, they've started to invest in AI. This is something new, which is something I discovered yesterday. So what? So why this is relevant to me? What this is going to bother me is because that's something I would like to introduce you, that there is a big change that is going to happen, and it is not a simple change, and it is a revolution, what we call fourth industrial revolution. This is something we all should need to be aware of, because this might take your job away. Doesn't mean that you become jobless, but you will be adapted to a different kind of situations. You will be given a new challenges. You have to learn a new techniques. You need to learn new technologies, and you have to excel in all those things. That is the reason why I wanted to specifically give this talk to you all, because my part is the first half. So my part, I am interested in the brain. I can do my research in the neuroscience and cognitive neuroscience. My work is fine. I am quite satisfied in the scientific world. But as an audience, as engineers, as technologists, as students, you are going to graduate, and tomorrow you are the one who is going to change the world. And we all have to take it together. We have to do it together. So I would like to introduce the notion of industrial revolution. So what is this fourth industrial revolution? So I would like to introduce what are the industrial changes before this happened. So a tribal man, he started his life in agriculture, using the animals. He just tried to invent this agriculture for the food. And later on, the first industrial revolution broke up, and this replaced by a lot of machines, and mass productions, things like that. Then the second industrial revolution has changed after the invention of the electricity. The first one was out of the mechanics. The second one out of the machines, electrics. Third one is because of automation and robots. And the fourth one is what we are right now. And the fourth industrial revolution is what we call Industry 4.0. And this fourth industrial revolution wanted to integrate all your physical, digital, and biological worlds together. So if you see deeply, if you think deeply from the first year, so what was there in the first power? So it was purely a muscle power. So man with his muscle, and he exploited the muscle power of the animals to his survival. In the first industrial revolution, used mechanical power for the sustainable life of this planet. And the second industrial revolutions, because of the electricity, it has changed a revolution. And the third industrial revolution, of no surprise, because of the electronics and automations. So what is the fourth one? So the fourth one is what we call cognitive power. So now we are in the world of cognition. We are in the world of cognitive power. Every industries, they wanted to use this cognitive power to change the world, and that is what something very interesting. And this is something very interesting for the whole world, because until now we all relied upon one particular discipline, but now because of this cognitive power, multidisciplinary has been needed. We need to have a multidisciplinary to understand that. So we think, okay, I studied electronics engineering, I studied bioengineering, I studied neuroengineering. I'm doing a cognitive neuroscience. If you see from the outside, I think as if I'm doing very specializations. I'm increasing my specializations. But the truth is not that I am becoming a specialist, rather I'm becoming a multidisciplinarist. And the Industry 4.40 converges all the different disciplines into one. So that is why we need to have this multidisciplinary approach. So you cannot say that I'm an electronics engineer, you cannot say that I'm a mathematician, you cannot say that you are a doctor. You need to integrate now. So the future is about the integration, and the future is it is near future, and that's why we need to have this multidisciplinary approach, because the industry 4.0 converges all the different aspects. So so I propose you that we need to have an multidisciplinary approach. So the fourth industrial revolution is all about connectivity. Connecting what? Connecting man and machines. So the integration, when I meant, it's not that, of course, there is a multidisciplinary team is required, but we are going to work with the machines. We all in the industries, from the shop floor till the management floor, we are going to work with the machines. So it's like a human machine collaborations, and we need to have that kind of prediction, or we need to have that kind of thinking that we need to start to invest. So my fourth question, so when and where it is going to help you? So when this is going to come? And they have predicted, like so they made us survive. So they made us a survey between 800 technological executives and experts from ICT, or information and communication technology sector. And most of the people, they voted, they're expecting this tipping point, what we call tipping point, or the convergence points. It will happen in near future. This is in 5 years from now. Yeah, so we are not sure how it is going to come, but we have to be prepared. And even if 2025 is like kind of exaggerated one, but at least even in 10 to 15 years, maybe even if you think in 10 to 15 years, there is a trend of changing, because there is an exponential growth because of the ICT, and there is a very fast development is happening in technology side. And the future is very soon. It's not very far, it's very soon. Over if you see the developments in all the technologies or all the industry past revolutions, there was an exponential growth. There was a gap, but as the time goes, that gap reduces, which means the future is going to change very quickly. Okay, so that was my 4 questions that I would like to address to you. And I would like to finish my last part on my vision. So I have recently published a paper. So what is the vision? So we all need to have some vision. And one of the reasons that I wrote this paper was I have a vision. So we know that industry 4.0, we have understood we are going to work with machines. So we have to collaborate with the machines. For example, the self-driving car, right? The self-driving car is going to come, and in the industries there will be robots, and we have to work with the robots. So if you are working with the machine, how can we work with the machine? One might think, right? Because if there is no clear communication, even communication gap between people will cause a lot of trouble. But think about working with the machine. So that might create a lot of problems. So what I'm proposing is that we need to have some multimodal interface. So the problem with I am having something called side vision to the main vision of Industry 4, because if we wanted to satisfy this main vision of Industry 4, we need to think about a side vision, which is to have a very good interaction between human and the machine. So the problem with the traditional human machine, so the user interface, what we call, is unimodal. It is always text-based, I/O using LCD, touchpad, low level. I say low level because it is not intuitive. Okay, there is a mistake here. It is not intuitive, and it is unnatural. You need to. It's not so easy to any people to handle a new technology. This is evident from the manual booklet, and you need a special training if you want to do. So there is an obvious need of manuals if I want to use a machine. On the other hand, we are not using the fullest potential of the human, because we are simply relying upon our unimodal feature, just like a vision and our typing pad, but we are not using anything. Now, next, I'm proposing that we need to have some user experience. So we need to move from the user interface to user experience, where we have to use a multimodal thing. I need to use a speech. I can use my vision, facial expressions, It has to be a high level. It has to be intuitive, and the communication between man and the machine should be natural. There is a communication between human beings. No, we have to have that kind of interface between man and machine. Only then we can able to collaborate with the machine. Otherwise, it's not so easy. And this kind of experience, what we call experience centered technologies, while the previous all other technologies are based on users function. So it was function oriented technologies. Now this is a need for to go to the experience centered technologies, and this gives you the fullest cognitive potentials. We can use the fullest human potentials. So for an example, Professor Hiroshi from MIT, he is working on this vision, and he has introduced something called tangible user interface. And he wants to replace the pixel empire, because now the information is in terms of bits, in terms of digital bits, but it is not, we cannot touch the bits, right? It is something an abstract, it is something an information bits, it is something abstract. I cannot touch it, I cannot feel it. Meaning that it is not tangible. So Professor Hiroshi from MIT lab, he is trying to develop a new interfaces which he called tangible user interface. The interface you can touch, all the bits you can touch. Okay, so I would like to show you some video about what I'm talking about. So I'm stopping sharing the slides, and I will share you my video. Are you all there with me?
Sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Just a moment. Yes, I will share you. Yes, ma'am.
Can we share
Yeah.
the videos and can you
Yes, I'm sharing. You want me to share me in the chats?
Yeah, it's fine. Please can you share through the chat?
I'm sharing you my video. Can you all see?
Yes, sir. Play, sir.
Okay.
Play it.
Okay, I will show you another video also. I will play you another video.
Harish,
Yes,
Harish,
ma'am. Yeah.
Harish, share this video and can we take some questions, Harish?
Yes. Okay, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. So I'm finishing.
Okay.
I will concluding my talk. So I just go back to my presentation. Sorry for the delay. So this is okay. I wanted to share you my screen slides.
Hey, sir, unmute your session. Yeah, that.
Okay, so I'm sharing you again the screen. Can you all see? I'm going towards my conclusion. Yeah. So this is my vision. So you all have this vision. So you need to make an interface which is more intuitive, and it is everybody has to use it, whether it's a kid or whether it's the old people. You need to come up with a device. As all youngsters and engineers, we need to have this kind of vision. If a machine is not, if old people cannot use technology, it doesn't mean that they don't have any potential. It is a problem of the design. It is a problem with the technology side, that they didn't made so easy for even the old people have used. So that is, I wanted to share you that conclusion. Okay, so I would like to conclude by saying some quotes. The fourth industrial revolution is not about the technology or the business, it's about the society. So world always need human brilliance, human ingenuity, and human skills. Even though there are machines they are going to replace, but they are just coming in future to help us. The world always need the humans. Okay, so thank you. So this is my team. I would like to thank my Professor Virginie Van Waschenhoff, my supervisor Dr. Sophie Herbst, and my engineer Dr. Leila, and all of the team members, Ivan, Valentine, Anna, everybody to my team. So thank you so much for your patience, and I'm sorry to make you the webinar a bit longer than I expected, and sorry for the technical reasons. Okay, so can I get some questions?
Yeah. Anybody? Vinina. Anybody having any questions?
Ma'am,
Myself.
Yeah.
More than
Okay,
questions, I think we have quite a lot of information shared by Harish. I think it's very useful. Great, Harish.
Yeah,
Thank you so
it
much.
was
I
a
think you
great session.
exactly you made it in a layman's language that you explained so much around the multimodal systems and the
Yes. Okay.
multidisciplinary activities that are going in the research area, which
Okay.
is helping as a person in the industry, but also I'm sure for the academia as well.
Harish, he is our alumni.
Okay.
He is Sudhakar from Intel.
Okay. Nice meeting, Sudhakar. Thank you for
Nice.
coming in the webinar.
No problem, Harish. Yeah, thank you. So I'll need some time to digest, and then maybe I'll get back with questions.
Okay,
Over to
sure.
you.
No problem.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Please
Thanks,
proceed.
Sudhakar. Thanks,
Thank
Sudhakar,
you.
for attending the session.
No problem, ma'am. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Anybody having any questions?
Ma'am, myself, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Hi,
Will you
Praveen.
please introduce yourself?
Yes, myself, Praveen from second year EC department.
Yes.
Okay.
So, thank you for giving us such a valuable speech for all of us.
With pleasure.
Yes, sir. So, as you said, you showed us a TED talk which was related about neuroprosthetics.
Yes.
We would like to take a small leap inside it so that myself and a group of seniors
Okay.
are working in this artificial hand using machine learning algorithms.
Okay.
So my question is, as I'm a second year student,
Yeah.
so I don't have any clear state of mind. So in which part to concentrate a lot and which part to leave.
Okay.
So as you yourself, so because brain is a complex organism,
Yeah.
So acquiring signals and doing all the stuff is very difficult. Hello. Hello, sir.
Hello, Harish. Hello.
Hello, Harish. Hello.
Technical issues.
Praveen?
Sir,
Yes,
can
ma'am.
you
He
repeat?
Yeah,
arrived, ma'am.
I lost you. Sorry, there was some problem.
Yes,
It got,
sir.
yeah.
So,
So what was your question?
yes, sir. Acquiring signals from brain is somewhat a very big task,
Yeah.
and feeding it to an algorithm based upon machine learning is
Yeah.
also a very big task.
Yeah.
So my part is that I need some knowledge on which algorithm I could concentrate on so that I could build a more efficient way to contact between the
What is
brains
your
and
goal? What is your which mean the algorithm for what?
algorithm for so that when people get aged,
Okay.
our EMG signal levels all get very bit low. The contact between the brain and the hand
Okay.
becomes so. For people who doesn't have hand, it
Okay.
would be very difficult for them to give that signals.
Which signals? The signal from the brain or signal from the muscle?
Signals from the brain, sir.
Okay.
So
So it's called EEG then. So
yeah,
you're
yes, sir.
talking about
EEG.
EEG.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah.
So my concept is like that. Even when people get old,
Okay.
the hand should adapt to the changes
Yeah.
so that it will perform efficiently even after years.
Okay.
So
So you
should I
mean the
concentrate?
artificial hand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So should I concentrate on neural networks or support vector machine, or should I go to reinforcement learning because it's based on decision making?
Yeah. Yes, my answer to that is it depends. First of all, it depends on your clear goal, what you want to do, uh, what you want to do, with what kind of algorithms you need. For example, if I want to say in a simple terms, if you wanted to be very computationally efficient, the linear based methods like support vector machines or any other machines will be quite easier. It's quite
Okay, sir.
straightforward in my opinion. I don't know, personally I don't have any strong practicals on using those algorithms. I have some theory. With the theory knowledge, I could say the support vector machines or these kind of linear measured methods are quite computationally efficient, while if you go to other learning algorithms, it is not so easy. um,
Okay,
you
sir.
have to train them. You have to train them before, and then you have to use it on the spot. So there is always this training and learning problem. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. One more doubt.
Yeah.
You said about two sensors, gradiometers and magnetometers.
Yes.
So could you repeat the difference between them?
Yeah. So in MEG, we have gradiometers and magnetometers, and both are measuring magnetic fields that is coming from your brain. The difference is gradiometers, if you look into the unit, so gradiometer has a unit of femtotesla per centimeter, which means it is a differential recording. So it takes the difference between two sensors. So that is what called gradiometers. So it's a relative measurement, while the magnetometers, which has a unit of femtotesla, which is absolute measurement. So it measures the absolute magnetic field. There is no relative measurement.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one last doubt, if you don't mind.
Of course. Sure, of course.
Sir, we have learned about you, like you are a part of Marie Curie Fellowship.
Yes.
So as a student, what do you think, what qualities we should be having to apply for that?
Okay, the only
Part of it.
qualifications to in order to apply Marie Curie funding is you have to be from the different nation. If, for example, in my case, I got this funding in France, so the minimum requirement is I shouldn't be from France, and I shouldn't have worked in France. So that is one. So what we call geographical requirements. So first is you need to have the geographical requirements, which is very important, and then apart from that, it's up to you. Like you, of course, you need for any PhD, you might to have some master's level qualifications to get PhD, and it's all about your confidence and how much you know about the subject and what you want to do. So you should have some clear idea what you want to do. No matter whether it's engineering or science, you should have some questions and you should have some clear goals defined. How do you going to achieve it? So that's the only thing they will see in the interview.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your informative speech.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello.
This is Dr. Thomas Renaud.
Yeah.
I'm currently
Sir.
the secretary of SRE's Alumni Association. Thank you,
Yes.
Harish, for the wonderful presentation you have done. Mesmerizing. And
Yeah,
I understand that you are trying to understand brain with your brain. So it is a wonderful thing which I haven't heard
Yes.
before. Anyway,
Yeah.
thanks. But one doubt and one question which stands up to me is that
Sure.
Albert Einstein is the one who used his brain very effectively to find something new, isn't it?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
history says like that. And
Yeah.
my understanding is that he has used 10% of his brain.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's correct, but the numerical value is 10%. So a normal person's lifetime will be
Uh-huh.
using much less than 10% of the brain what he has.
Okay. Okay.
So my question is, human brain has invented machines which nowadays overtake the brains.
Yeah.
The machine can think more faster than the human brains.
Yes.
So
Of course.
that is a contradiction. The contradiction where I is that will we be able to understand brain?
Yeah.
With our brain?
Could you repeat? Will you be able to understand the brain?
With the brain.
Yes. Yeah. So one answer for you, the first answer where you are comparing, you are talking about Einstein's brain and the other common people's brain. Shall I ask you one question? Is that Einstein's kidney is different from other person's kidney? It's the same, right? So any brain, any organ inside the human body's organ, everything functions similarly, right? That is one good question that you raised, because this I recently realized. So all other human, like if a heart is, it has to pump, no matter whether it's elite's heart or a poor man's heart. The kidney, it has to filter, no matter it's elite's kidney or a poor man's kidney. Similarly, the brain has to function, and brain has a logic, it has the intellect, no matter whether it's the elite's brain or the poor man's brain. So we all have the capacity, and everybody can be smart, everybody is smart, by the way, by birth. That is why the human brain is so special. That is why we are not able to understand the human brain. We are not investigating only Einstein's brain, we are investigating brain as in general, which means everybody's brain is smart, everybody's brain is complex, everybody's brain is rich. It all depends upon what you want and how much time you spend. Einstein has become so good in physics and his experiment, and he's a good theoretical physicist because he has spent a lot of time in investigating. That's the only difference. While the common man, he has spent a lot of time in entertainment. While the common people, they are giving more time for the entertainment. They don't have time to do or to some one specialization. In, for example, in my case, how did I reach this time just in 8 years? Because I spent my time only in this. I didn't spend time in other activities. My maximum, of course, there has to be always work life balance, that is for sure, but it depends upon how much time one has spent in his career, or how much, that is what we call experience matters. Experience matters. So that is my answer to you. Is it convincing?
Definitely, Harish. Thank you for your
Okay.
wonderful explanation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Another
Harish?
point that I would like to say, of course, machines are very fast. And if you see from an electronics engineer, computers work with electrons, right? So the speed of electron is very higher. While the human brain, the conduction is happening through the ions. The human brain may be slow, but definitely that is a difference, because ionic conduction is quite slower, while the electronic conduction is quite faster. So there is no doubt calculator will be smarter than you, computer will be smarter than you, but That is smarter only in terms of speed, but in terms of creative thoughts, the imagination, that full non-linear aspects, that the wondering of the human brain cannot match with the machines. Whatever machine can do, it is just only 1% of what the human brain can does. So that is another different. I want to tell you between machines with the computers. They are fast. They are faster, of course, but they are just that.
Thank you. The other questions we can pose to Harish. Definitely he'll answer. So Harish will the mail address of Harish.
Okay.
Harish, can we close the session?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Harish,
Thanks a
thank you,
lot.
Harish. Thanks
Yeah.
a lot, Harish. Harish is a 2012 alumni. I thank him for his immediate acceptance, a very sound preparation. He has been preparing the PPT for 1 week, and it was very, very informative, fantastic session on multimodal and disciplinary research. Thank you, Harish, once again. He had
No problem.
a trial, a 1 hour trial in the morning, and see his sincerity. He had a 1 hour trial in the morning, and again he has come back in the evening. He took a week for preparation of the PPT. Hope all of you would have found the session very useful. Thank you, Harish. I thank our principal, Dr.
Yeah.
N.R. Alamelo, HOD, and my colleagues, and my dear students, participants, and other participants. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks all. Thank you for your
We
attention.
have a feedback link. Please fill up the link, all of you, because Harish wants the feedback. So we have to send him. So please fill up the. We have posted it on the chat session. Thank you, all of you. Thank you, Harish. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Harish. Yeah, bye.
Yeah. I will all send you the email, the PPT. So I will share you all with my PPT. See you all.
Thank you, Harish. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No problem.
ஹரிஷ் தேங்க்யூ நல்லா இருந்தது.
Okay, no. Super. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Harish, bye.